You are currently living in a state of financial hemorrhage. You believe you are solvent because you can pay your bills, but you are bleeding out slowly through 1,000 tiny cuts. These cuts are the purchases you deem insignificant. The 1,000 ruble threshold is not arbitrary. It is the psychological barrier between survival and consumption. Anything below 1,000 rubles can usually be justified as food or basic hygiene. Anything above 1,000 rubles usually contains an element of want, not need. When you buy a pair of sneakers for 5,000 rubles when you already have shoes, you're not buying footwear, you're buying a dopamine hit. You're trading 5,000 rubles of your freedom fund for a piece of rubber and cloth that will depreciate to zero in 12 months. This is a bad trade. It is the trade of a peasant who eats his seed corn because he is hungry now, forgetting that he will starve next winter. The sovereign architect does not eat the seed corn, he plants it. He starves today to harvest a kingdom tomorrow. You must understand the compound interest of freedom. Every 1,000 rubles you save and invest into your business or debt repayment is not just 1,000 rubles. It is a soldier. That soldier works for you 24/7. If you employ that soldier effectively, for example, buying a better microphone to improve audio retention, leading to higher ad revenue, that soldier recruits more soldiers. When you spend that 1,000 rubles on a nice dinner, you are executing the soldier. You are killing him for a momentary taste on your tongue. This is financial treason. Until you own your home, until you stand on soil that no landlord can evict you from, you are in a state of emergency war. In war, you do not buy luxuries. You buy ammo, you buy fuel, you buy rations. Everything else is treason. The house represents the end of the war. It represents the fortress where you are safe. Until the fortress is built, every penny spent on decorating the trench, your rented apartment, is madness. The renter's mindset is a disease. The renter thinks in terms of monthly cash flow. Can I afford the payment on this new iPhone? This is slave logic. The owner thinks in terms of net asset value. Does this purchase increase my net worth or decrease it? A phone decreases. A car decreases. Clothes decrease. Food turns to waste. These are entropy accelerators. They take your hard-earned energy, money, and turn it into dust. The only things that fight entropy are assets, business, brand, land, gold/Bitcoin. The liquidation of consumption requires you to view every object in a store as a depreciation trap. That gadget looks shiny. It's a trap. It wants to eat your capital and give you nothing back but a distraction. That brand name jacket? It's a trap. It wants you to pay for the logo of another man's empire instead of building your own. Walk past the trap. Keep the capital. The 1,000 ruble shackle works like this. You buy a subscription for 1,000 rubles. It seems small, but over 10 years, that is 120,000 rubles without interest. If invested in your business at a 20% return, which is low for a high-growth channel, that 1,000 rubles per month could have been millions. You are not spending 1,000 rubles. You are spending millions of future rubles. You are robbing your future self to entertain your present self. This creates a temporal distortion where the present you is a parasite feeding on the blood of the future you. The sovereign architect reverses this. The present you sacrifices everything to feed the future you. You act as the guardian of the future king. You do not let the guardian steal the king's gold. We must also address the status signaling of the poor. Poor people and the middle class buy things to signal that they are not poor. They buy the phone, the watch, the branded shoes to say, look, I have resources. This is a lie. They have spent resources. They have exchanged power for symbols of power. The sovereign architect does not signal. He accumulates. You walk around in cheap clothes with a cracked screen, if it still works, eating simple food. You look like a nobody. Good. Let them underestimate you. While they are wearing their wealth, you are stacking yours. While they are buying liabilities to impress people they hate, you are buying assets to free yourself from people altogether. This strategic poverty is a camouflage. It allows you to move through the world without being targeted by sales, scams, or envy. You are a ghost accumulating mass in the shadows. The ownership imperative. Why is the house the finish line for this phase? Because rent is the ultimate tax on your existence. It is money you pay just to exist in a space with zero equity built. It is a black hole. Every month, a huge chunk of your life energy is thrown into the furnace of the landlord. Your goal is to plug the black hole. To do this, you need a massive lump sum of capital. You cannot accumulate this capital if you are bleeding 1,000 rubles here and there on comfort. You need terminal velocity savings rate. You need to save 70%, 80%, 90% of your income. This is impossible if you consume like a normal human. You must consume like a monk, like a prisoner, like a machine. The house is not for luxury. It is for zero burn rate. Once you own the house, your cost of living collapses. You become unkillable. You can survive on very little money because the biggest expense is gone. This is true sovereignty. But to get there, you must endure the great fast. Finally, realize that consumption is a pacifier. You buy things to soothe the anxiety of not being who you want to be. You feel like a loser, so you buy a winner's watch. You feel bored, so you buy a game. You feel lonely, so you buy a meal out. The liquidation of consumption takes away the pacifier. Now you must face the anxiety. You must face the boredom. You must face the loneliness. And you must use that pain to drive production. Instead of buying the watch, build the business that buys the watch factory. Instead of buying the game, build the game. Instead of buying the meal, cook the rice and get back to work. Turn the urge to consume into the urge to create. Every time you want to buy something greater than 1,000 rubles, punish yourself by writing 1,000 words. Rewire the impulse. Make spending painful. Make earning pleasurable. The second phase of liquidating consumption is the installation of a new pricing algorithm in your visual cortex, the time price calculation. You must stop seeing prices in rubles or dollars. You must see prices in hours of labor. If you want to buy a meal that costs 1,000 rubles and your current effective hourly rate, based on your total income divided by total work hours, is 500 rubles, that meal costs 2 hours of life. Are those 2 hours of sitting in a chair, ruining your eyes, and stressing over a timeline worth the 15 minutes of taste? Usually, the answer is no. When you convert currency into bleed time, the time you bled to earn it, consumption becomes repulsive. You realize that buying that useless gadget is equivalent to chaining yourself to the desk for 3 days. You are paying for the gadget with your life force. The sovereign architect values his life force infinitely. Therefore, he rarely trades it for anything that does not generate more life force, assets. You must also visualize the depreciation curve of everything you touch. This is the instant garbage theory. Most consumer goods lose 50% of their value the moment you unbox them. A new phone? Instant minus 30%. New clothes? Instant minus 80%. Try reselling a used shirt. A car? Instant minus 20% the moment it leaves the lot. When you buy these things, you are voluntarily entering a value destruction cycle. You are taking hard currency, which holds value, and converting it into soft goods, which rot. The sovereign architect only wants to be on the appreciation curve. This is the curve of assets. A house usually appreciates. Gold appreciates. A YouTube channel, digital real estate, appreciates as the library grows. Bitcoin appreciates. If you are not buying something that sits on the appreciation curve, you are lighting your work on fire. You are working hard to buy ash. This brings us to the asset versus liability audit. You must look at every object in your room and ask, is this an asset or a liability? Asset. Puts money in your pocket. Camera, PC, microphone, stock portfolio. Liability. Takes money out of your pocket. Car requiring gas/repairs. Subscription. Pet. Fancy clothes requiring dry cleaning. Neutral. Keeps you alive. Basic food. Hygiene. Your goal is to maximize assets and minimize liabilities to near zero. A car is a massive liability unless it is absolutely essential for the income generation. If you can walk, walk. If you can take a bus, take a bus. The status of the car is a tax you pay to impress strangers. The liability-free life is the fastest path to the house. Every liability you cut is a sandbag dropped from your hot air balloon. You rise faster. The exit number must be calculated with precision. How much does the fortress, the house/apartment, cost? Let's say 10 million rubles. This is your target coordinate. Every purchase must be weighed against this coordinate. Coffee, 300 rubles, equals 0.003% of the house. New chair, 20,000 rubles, equals 0.2% of the house. Vacation, 100,000 rubles, equals 1.0% of the house. When you see the percentage, you realize the damage. Is this week in Turkey worth delaying my freedom by 1%? Maybe, but probably not. This is percentage thinking. It gamifies the savings. You are grinding XP to reach level 100, the house. Every purchase drains your XP bar. Every saved ruble fills it. Do not drain the bar. We must also debunk the cost per use fallacy. The consumer tells himself, this expensive jacket is worth it because I will wear it every day, so the cost per use is low. This is a lie used to justify vanity. Unless the jacket makes you money, for example, you are a fashion model or it's a uniform, its utility is purely thermal, keeping you warm. A 5,000 ruble jacket keeps you just as warm as a 50,000 ruble jacket. The extra 45,000 rubles is vanity tax. The cost per use logic only applies to production tools. An expensive PC has a low cost per use because it renders videos faster, saving saving you time, which is money. An expensive jacket saves you nothing. It just feeds your ego. Kill the ego. Buy the utility. The zero-based budgeting for the sovereign. Most people budget by taking their income and subtracting expenses. I make 100,000. I spend 90,000. I save 10,000. The sovereign budgets from zero. I make 100,000. My goal is to save 100,000. What is the absolute minimum I must spend to not die? Rent, non-negotiable for now. Food, rice, eggs, chicken, basic fuel, internet, utility, everything else denied. You do not allocate money for fun. You do not allocate money for clothes. You start at 100% savings and reluctantly bleed only what is necessary to keep the biological machine running. This shift from spending first to saving first is the engine of wealth. It hurts. It feels restrictive, but it builds the house in 3 years instead of 30. Finally, understand the liquidity trap. Cash in your pocket burns a hole. The human sees a balance in the bank account and thinks, I have money. Wrong. You do not have money. You have unassigned soldiers. If you leave them unassigned in a checking account, they will wander off. You will spend them. You must sweep your accounts. Every night or every week, sweep all excess cash into a do not touch account or invest it or pay debt. Leave your checking account at near zero. Create a state of artificial poverty. You should always feel broke because all your money is deployed in the war, saved for the house/invested. If you feel broke, you won't buy the 1,000 ruble trinket. You will say, I can't afford it. And you will be right, because your money belongs to the future, not the present. The final stage of the liquidation of consumption is the realization that your ultimate enemy is not the price of coffee, but the institution of rent. Rent is the modern equivalent of feudalism. You are a serf working the land, the economy, to pay the lord, the landlord, for the privilege of sleeping under a roof. This transaction is a total loss event. Every ruble paid in rent is incinerated. It builds no equity. It buys no future. It vanishes into the landlord's pocket to pay his mortgage. You are paying for another man's freedom while remaining enslaved. The sovereign architect cannot tolerate this state of vulnerability. As long as you rent, you can be evicted. As long as you rent, your cost of living is subject to inflation. As long as you rent, you are not a king, you are a guest. The citadel of ownership is the only cure. The goal of liquidating all other consumption is to accumulate the ballistic capital needed to blast your way out of the rental trap once and for all. You must view the house not as a home, but as a low overhead fortress. The human wants a house to impress friends or to feel cozy. The architect wants a house to structurally lower his burn rate to near zero. Once the house is paid for, your mandatory monthly expenses collapse. You no longer need to earn 100,000 per month just to survive. Maybe you only need 20,000 for food and utilities. This creates a massive sovereign margin. When your cost of survival is low, you become dangerous. You can take risks that renters cannot take. You can spend 6 months building a complex project without worrying about eviction. You can say no to bad deals because you don't need the money desperately. This position is called the position of fuck you, as coined by John Goodman in The Gambler. A house is a physical manifestation of fuck you. It is the ground you stand on to tell the world to go to hell. Until you have the fortress, you have to be polite. Once you have the fortress, you can be honest. The acquisition of the citadel requires blood money. You're not going to buy this house with easy money. You're going to buy it with the proceeds of the 540 videos. Every brick in that wall will represent a sleepless night, a skipped meal, a rejected luxury. This gives the property a spiritual weight. It is not just wood and stone. It is crystallized suffering. When you eventually walk into your own home, bought with cash or a rapidly paid off mortgage, you will feel a silence that renters never know. It is the silence of security. The wolf is no longer at the door. You have killed the wolf and made a rug out of him. This psychological shift unlocks the next level of creativity. You are no longer creating out of fear, survival. You are creating out of power, expansion. But to get there, you must hoard every ruble now. You cannot buy the bricks if you spend the money on sneakers. We must also dismantle the investment myth. Financial gurus will tell you that rent is better than owning because the stock market returns 8% and houses only return 3%. This is Excel sheet logic that ignores human reality. The spreadsheet doesn't account for the psychological stress of renting. It doesn't account for the power of having a permanent base. It doesn't account for the risk of rent hikes. The sovereign architect values control over optimized returns. I would rather have a 0% return on a house I own and control than a 10% return on a stock portfolio while a landlord threatens to kick me out. Control is the highest ROI. The peace of mind that comes from ownership allows you to make millions in your business. The anxiety of renting costs you millions in lost focus. Buy the control. The bunker mentality during the accumulation phase. While you are saving for the citadel, you must live like you are in a bunker. You are under siege. The enemy is entropy. You defend your pile of gold, savings, with a shotgun. You do not let anyone touch it. You do not lend money to friends. Liquidate it. You do not go on dates that cost money. Liquidate it. You do not upgrade your lifestyle. You are a dragon sleeping on a hoard. The hoard has one purpose. The key to the citadel. When you reach the number, you strike. You buy the freedom. You do not hesitate. You do not wait for the market to crash. You buy the exit. Finally, understand that the citadel is the beginning, not the end. The human thinks buying a house is the end of the journey, time to retire and garden. For the architect, the citadel is the base of operations. It is the HQ from which you launch your global conquest. Once the housing problem is solved, you can turn your full attention to the AOXI 3 mission without the background noise of survival. You unlock creative immortality. You can build libraries, servers, studios, infrastructure that lasts. You are moving from being a nomad to being an emperor. The nomad carries everything on his back. The emperor builds monuments. Stop buying trinkets for your backpack. Start saving stones for your monument. Action. Define the target. Know the exact price of the cheapest acceptable fortress. Freedom. Calculate the gap. Current net worth minus fortress price equals the deficit. Hemorrhage stop. Plug every leak greater than 1,000 rubles. Redirect to the deficit. Embrace the bunker. Live in war mode austerity until the deficit is zero. Buy the fuck you. Purchase the property to secure the sovereign margin. The consumption is liquidated. The black hole is sealed. The citadel is the goal. The war is for territory. AOXI 3 out.